Today's talk is by Bob Kauffman, who is a retired professor emeritus from the muscle lab in the meat and animal science department. Bob is actually the reason we're here today, because in fact about 5 years ago he called a meeting of 25 old guys from the retired faculty of the CALS and suggested that we do something to try to preserve our history. And among the several things we decided to do was to teach this course. So Bob's going to talk about his work in the muscle lab, and Erica Thomas will follow him with some discussion of things from the point of view of a student.
You want to just wire that on?
Mm-hmm. Put that in your pocket.
Okay, and I can run this with this. Okay. I'm pleased to be here today. My name is Bob Kauffman, and I'm part of the reason why we're talking about extracurricular activities. And I guess I'm starting off by saying that you can't judge a book by its cover. That includes me. You won't know exactly what I'm like until I tell you a little bit about it. And I thought it's important because I never pick out a book to read before I know who the author is. And sometimes I get fooled anyway. But anyway, I wanted you to know some of my strange behaviors because I'm not a typical teacher at the university, or wasn't, let's put it that way, 20 years ago or so. I guess if you describe me in one way, I'm an entrepreneur of extracurricular activities, and I can only prove that by virtue of history. But anyway, for instance, I gave you a handout today on the 6 organizations that we're talking about in this course this year. And I did that for one reason, and that is that I don't expect to read it to you. I expect you to read it yourself. And when I don't expect people to memorize things in class, I expect them to read it. I always hand things out. I think this business of taking notes is ridiculous. And so I try to minimize that as much as I can. And I'd like to also start out by saying something about extracurricular activities. I consider this as an extension of learning beyond the lecture room and the laboratory itself. It's an extension, an extremely important one as far as I'm concerned, in the whole learning process. Here at the University of Wisconsin, I think is the root of a pioneer program that has gone on for not just a few years, but we have extracurricular activities going on beyond 50 years. Dave Combs mentioned last time that the dairy judging team started in 1924, which is nearly 100 years ago. And you're going to hear about one of these, what I consider one of the most important extracurricular activities, and that's NAMA. And these folks are here to talk about this, and they're going to talk about this right away. But before I get started, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my background and the fact that I like to think that learning can be fun, and that you can't teach everything in lectures, in a library, and in a laboratory. Even though a laboratory, I think, is important for lectures to extend, especially in the biological sciences and chemistry. I wish we would have had extracurricular activities in chemistry when I was going to school, because I might have liked it a little bit better. Because I really struggled with organic chemistry and all those type reactions, Dave. And even though I became a joint major in biochemistry, I struggled all the way through it. And I wasn't what you'd call a top A student at all. I was glad to survive. And I also think that, how many of you know in here have ever heard of the name Bassam Shakasheri? Well, he's a guy that knows something about entertaining as well as and making chemistry fun. I think every year he has this chemistry Christmas time, and he makes it really interesting. And I wish I would have had a teacher like him in beginning chemistry, because chemistry was really a tough area for me. I don't know, what do you think about that, Dave?
I love it.
Well, anyway. That's sort of a little bit about my background, so you know where I'm coming from. And there's a few things that I wanted to mention to you too, and that is creativity and imagination. I've struggled for 50 years trying to teach that, and realized a long time ago that you don't teach that stuff. You set up organizations and a stage for it, and then let the students develop and find it for themselves. You don't teach imagination. You don't teach creativity as such, as far as I'm concerned. You don't even teach enthusiasm. I've tried to do this somewhat, and I've tried to be an example of being enthused with whatever I'm teaching. For instance, in class, when my students come to class, I may start out for the first 15 minutes and just ask them questions of which they hate. But especially when they're put on the spot and they don't know anything about it. So anyway, that's a little bit about my background. I wanted you to know that I'm not the typical lecture, note-taking, memorization, and testing. By the way, I might just say that I think testing is a great way of learning, and I made all of my tests experiences, and some of the students hated it because one time I gave a crossword puzzle as an exam, and this one young lady came to me and said, I never could do crossword puzzles. I hate them, and you're ruining my life now because I can't do these. Well, I didn't mean to ruin her life, and I don't think it did, but nevertheless, it was an experience for both me and that young lady at the time. I wanted to show you one, before I start and turn it over to the folks from NAMA, I want to show you one picture that I'd like to, let's see, now, I want to show you this picture because this is what I consider one of the most unique pictures I have ever had in my classroom teaching of some 45, 50 years. You'll notice that there's, on the second row, two young men with a girl in between, a young lady. Well, those 6 girls didn't have too much to do with those 2 men. They weren't very congenial. I don't know, they got along okay, I suppose, well. But these 6 young ladies, Mary Lang in the back row, Jane Clark, Debbie Boland, Kathy Pierce, Pamela Severson, and Ann Gluen, I know them like they're my daughters. They have been together for 40 years, and they've known each other, they share each other's problems and so forth, but this was just what I consider a unique example of how an extracurricular activity, and they happen to be on the 1979 meat animal evaluation team. These guys are 60 years old now. It's hard to believe, but anyway, they get together, and in fact, 2 years ago, I had them visit our home farm in North Missouri, and they brought all their spouses with them, and we filled the house, and we had a great time. And they didn't invite those 2 fellows up there at all, but that's them. And what do? They're all employed. The one on the left down here is a veterinarian. The second one to the right is a government inspector in California. The third one is an entrepreneur of all sorts. Kathy Pierce has helped me with another programs. She's a nurse. She turned into a nurse after a while, but she was a meat and animal science person. The other 2 are teachers. The one in the back works for a meat company. But anyway, this is an example, what I consider a really unique example of when I said it helps form personal relationships, and it really did. And I'm sure that the NAMA people will probably agree this too. And so with this introduction, I want you to now meet Sarah Botham and her students from NAMA, because they're going to tell you about their program, because I think of all the programs we have here in the college, this is probably one of the most unique and complete programs of all of them, even including mine. Sarah?
That's quite an introduction. I don't have fancy slides like Bob, so I brought a little bit better.
Here.
What I think, I have a pretty loud voice. Can you hear me in the back?
They're videotaping.
Oh, then I guess I have to, huh?
They want to hear you,
You
Sarah.
didn't tell me I had to be beautiful for this, Bob.
Well, look at me.
I would have tried harder. Okay.
Thank you.
Is that better? Instead of beautiful slides, I brought beautiful people. And I want to tell you a little bit about the organization that I've been the proud coach and advisor for this is my 14th year. NAMA, which stands for the National Agricultural Marketing Association, is housed in the Department of Life Sciences Communication, which was formerly known as Ag Journalism. I've been teaching in LSC for nearly 20 years, and 14 of those years have been some of the richest of my life. The extraordinary people that I get to work with inspire me every day. Apart from my work at the college, I have 3 businesses, and my husband has a 4th, so I am very much an entrepreneur in the marketing world, and the things that I do in the classroom benefit my students, and I know come back to benefit me and my clients moving forward. So there's a great deal of interaction that happens, and it's very, very real world. I get to bring what I do every day in my business life to the classroom, and my students get to share with me the things that they're learning and almost teaching back to me. So I brought with me 3 students who this year are part of the National Agricultural Marketing Association student chapter. It is a student chapter of a professional organization that has chapters around the country and in Canada. As an organization, we work hard to give students experiences that will offer them networking opportunities in the agricultural world and in the marketing field. As you may or may not know, the ag world is very small, and these students form relationships in their undergrad years that carry them throughout the course of their career. The friendships they make in NAMA, not just in our chapter, but in chapters from across the country, are friendships that they have the rest of their lives. They meet people who they encounter later in their work in the ag field and whose friendships become dear to them. They rely on each other, and they have a way of, as Bob talked about earlier with his dairy judging team, they have a way of sticking together through the rest of their lives and staying very connected. I, as advisor, have also benefited from those relationships, and I will say that I have 1 child to whom I gave birth, and probably about another 200 that I consider my children, who have become my children over the years in advising NAMA and working with them. They're people who I continue to stay in touch with and whose relationships are dear to me. And they all began as the NAMA family was formed each year. So NAMA works to bring marketing experiences to our students. It might be a study tour to a farm or a creamery or a cranberry marsh or a ginseng farm or a vineyard and winery. We like to expose our students to every aspect of agriculture that we can, and then bring marketing to that agricultural experience. So much of what we do every day involves agriculture, and the way we understand how agriculture impacts our life is really all about the marketing around it. The messages that we receive as a result, the information we learn and understand, the way we read a food label, what we know about the way animals are raised and crops are raised, all comes from the messages we deliver, and those messages are at the heart of marketing. So that's what we work hard to do in pretty much the full course of the year, is bring those experiences to our students. We do study tours. We are fortunate in Madison to have the World Dairy Expo. Every single year it comes back. We're so happy for that. Over 65,000 people visit Madison during that span of about 5 or 6 days, and our students are fortunate enough to offer their services to the exhibitor companies that come from around the world, and they work in their booths to help them deliver their messages and experiences to the people who visit them during the trade show. In the course of doing that, they raise a lot of money, which is very, very helpful for what happens later in the year. And they begin to build those networks of people who will impact their careers and whose lives will change because they met these fabulous students. So there's a lot of really, really good that comes from interaction with NAMA from a professional standpoint, but if you're trying to find a home and a family and a place to really feel comfortable and a place that you know you can turn to people you can rely on, with whom you have things in common, NAMA is really very much a family. And I'll let the students talk a little bit more about that and their experiences. But before I do that, in the fall semester, we do a lot of the study tours and we work at World Dairy Expo, we raise money, but we also begin the process of finding a product that we can take to national competition through a marketing plan. We develop a full-scale marketing plan for one not yet introduced to the market, but very real agricultural product. In previous years, we have done products that are very ag-related and some that are very food-related or consumer-related. Last year, we did a ginseng-based product. The year before that, we did a cranberry-based product. The year before that, we did a cotton-based product. This year, we're doing a wine-based product. And we're using technology that was developed through the University of Wisconsin through a spin-off company called Swallow Solutions. That's a spin-off of research conducted at the UW, and we're creating a thickened wine product that is targeted at folks who have swallowing disorders, who have difficulty swallowing common beverages, and want to feel normal and want to feel included when they are socializing with friends and enjoying a glass of wine. And that product will be made when we are done. We're bringing this product to market sort of in advance of its real launch, but it is something that has true commercial potential. And many of the products that we've done over the last 14 years have come to commercial fruition as a result of the work that we've done in the development of those plans and then bringing them to national competition. So in the fall, we look for products that we can consider as the key product that we will take to competition and we will use for developing our marketing plan. And then in the spring semester, the students get to enroll in a class. It's LSC 477, and that class is a 2-credit repeatable class. You can take it up to 4 times, so each of your 4 undergrad years. Graduate students are also welcome, but only up to 4 times can you take the class. And it is the class during which we develop that marketing plan for the product we have chosen in the fall semester. We do everything from naming the product to giving it a visual identity to creating its marketing plan based in market research, competitive analysis, a business proposition, action plan, which is how we actually bring it to market. What am I missing? A way we will monitor and measure the plan and how effective what we have done in bringing it to market has been, and then a whole set of financials. So a real-life budget that has to accompany this plan and be realistic. And then we take it to national competition. This year the competition is in Kansas City, and all that money we raised in the fall, we're going to spend getting to the competition and housing our students, and it offsets the cost for the students individually. So they will spend the better part of a week out of class in Kansas City this year, enjoying themselves, and each of them will also put in some money, but it's nominal because of the money we've raised in the fall. The competition moves each year or every other year or so. We've been in Dallas, we've been in Arizona, we've been in Jacksonville, we've been in, 2 years from now it goes to San Diego. It always comes home to Kansas City at some point, so now we're at Kansas City for 2 years. And we'll go to San Diego in a couple of years. But it also affords students the opportunity to see a little bit of the country and have new experiences. I've had students who've never been on an airplane before travel with me, which has always been a fun thing to have them experience, and something I'm sure they didn't expect in their college career. So I think I've blathered on long enough, and I'll let some of my students tell you a little bit about their experiences. The 3 students I have with me tonight are all seniors and are what I call NAMA veterans. Some have been with me for all 4 years, some for just 2. Allison, are you 3? 3? 4, okay. And fortunately, we have Allison Wadig, who is this year's marketing team coordinator. And what that means is that the competition work that we're doing, the class that those students all take, really Allison is leading. I'm just there to sort of be the ship's navigator. I sort of steer them in the right direction, and when they get off course, I point them back where they belong. I try to, bring some concepts into the classroom and And Allison and I meet every week for an hour before class to go through what we're going to talk about and the things we need to get accomplished. But really, the student leader directs the class, leads the class, and that's part of the leadership development that comes from NAMA also. Last year, Mariah was our marketing team coordinator, and she had the same kinds of experiences as a junior. Allison is a senior. So this year, Mariah is getting to bring back to the organization and to the team the experiences that she had as a leader, and I think it gives her peers on the team a little more perspective. Like now I'm back to being one of you, but you need to pay a little more attention to what's happening in the front of the room because it matters. And then Jordan has been with me for 3 years also. And all three of these people, by the way, are fabulous presenters. They have extraordinary presentation skills that have developed not just through NAMA, but in their experiences in FFA and other organizations before they got to NAMA. But I've watched them grow and develop, had the great privilege of watching them grow and develop through this organization. And they are extraordinary people with great futures. And I am quite proud to say, I get a little emotional about my kids, I like them. I'm quite proud to say that not just these three, but each year, almost without fail, every one of my graduating seniors has a job well before they graduate in a professional organization that they are eager to join and who has competed hard to get them. So they don't take jobs just because it's the only one available to them. They get to sort of pick and choose the jobs they want. When you have NAMA on your resume in this industry, people really take notice, and they want you because you have had the experiences that bring real-world marketing, real-world presentation, real-world plan development to the workplace. And it's not something they have to go back and teach you all over again. So I'm done now. I'm going to introduce, do you want to go one at a time? Do you want to go, Mariah, do you want to go first? Okay. So let me introduce to you with great pleasure Mariah Martin and Allison Wadig and Jordan Gall. And I'm just going to let you guys chat. Mariah, you get to go first.
Hello. I'm going to chat a little more on the chapter of NAMA as I'm the president and have been involved all 4 years I've been here. Speaking a little more to what Sarah mentioned, the study tours, we bring in a speaker to each meeting from a wide variety of different industries. And like this past month, we had someone from the National Restaurant Association, or the Wisconsin Restaurant Association, tell us how the Wisconsin Restaurant Association works. And so we do those as well, the fundraising efforts, and then study tours and professional development opportunities. One of the cool things about NAMA is that, so it's a professional organization, and above us is a professional chapter that makes up of industry professionals, and we can actually all join that once we graduate. So that's something I am looking forward to once I graduate. I have a professional network to already go into. I don't have to go search for something. And I've been involved on marketing team all 4 years and gained a lot of experiences. Although it's called marketing team in the National Agri-Marketing Association, our club has majors ranging from dairy science. We've had food science in the past. We have students that come all the way from the business school down to this side of campus. And they don't necessarily have to be majoring in marketing or communications or business. We have someone who's biology. And it's just like the experience of being able to put together a plan and have those experience in a professional organization.
And I'm Allison again. This year I'm the marketing team coordinator, as Sarah had mentioned. And one of the things that I just kind of wanted to highlight about the importance of a class like NAMA is the real life skills that you may get to attempt in a classroom setting. This really brings it to life full scale. I like to call them our NAMA need to knows. One of my favorite parts of NAMA is that when you look at something that you do in a classroom, you might remember or recall it for an exam, but then when it goes to the real world and you're sitting and your boss asks you, what does this mean? It might be really hard to recall what you learned in that classroom. But when it comes to NAMA, that is something that we talk about every day. We put it into a plan, but then we have to take it one step farther by presenting it and getting questions about that, and judges ask us those. And so that really takes what we're learning to the next level and allows us to apply that to the real world and really leave. I feel like I'm leaving as a senior now with a lot better skills that I will be able to utilize directly into my career, instead of being like, okay, well, I think I know these things, but now how does that apply to the work I will be doing in my future?
Allison, can you tell us where you're going to be working when you graduate? I'd like you to do that, actually.
Yeah, of course. Well, the place that I'm going to be working at, I'm working for Culver's, their support center, or in other words, like their corporate office in Sauk Prairie, Wisconsin, and I'm working in marketing and communications, but a lot of the work I'll get to have the pleasure of working on is directly related to their Thank You Farmer project. And so a lot of the things that I am working on in NAMA really relate to the efforts that they do and have some of the same campaign and initiatives. So we can go back to you.
After graduation, I will be moving to St. Louis, Missouri, and working for Osborne Barr, which is a marketing agency focusing on rural and community. And I will be working as an account coordinator for 2 businesses, and those are DeKalb and Asgrode, which is a seed company, and then Common Ground, which has education efforts around agriculture.
So we'll move it to Jordan.
Thank you, Allison. I'm Jordan. I can't escape the light. So NAMA, there's so many things I could sit up here and talk about NAMA, but one thing for me, I think historically agriculture is becoming increasingly less prevalent in just everyone's daily lives, and that's a good thing. It means that technologies are advancing to a point where we don't all have to grow our own food. But now that only 2% of the United States population is directly involved with agriculture, organizations that focus on agricultural marketing are just that more important. I didn't come from a farming background. I grew up in the suburbs. My family didn't move out to a rural community until I went off to school. And I've learned so much about agriculture in general through this organization, not only from our study tours, but from my peers that grew up in both production and smaller scale agriculture. And now my parents are starting their own little produce operation. And when I graduate part-time outside of my regular job, I'll be using the skills from NAMA to help them market their new little niche market brand. So that was an exciting thing for me to learn more about agriculture and for NAMA as a student organization here on campus and the impact it's had on me. Professional network first and foremost. And when I say professional network, I don't just mean the professionals that I meet at different events and through the professional organization, but like Allison and Mariah here, I'll probably be working alongside them at some point in my career. We're entering into a small field, and I don't think it's going to get that much bigger, so I'm sure we may even end up working side by side as coworkers someday. Four of them. Yeah. NAMA has enabled me to put time and effort into a lot of my diverse interests within marketing. So 2 of the areas on our marketing team that I'm most involved with is the design, look, feel, and brand of our product and everything else regarding that, and then the market research, more of the technical stats and research to back up why we're bringing a product to market. And those are 2 really different areas that I typically in a normal classroom setting wouldn't have the chance to explore both, but in NAMA I can spend hours and hours doing it, and that's pretty cool in my opinion. After graduation, I'll be headed out to Waukesha, Wisconsin to work for a small agricultural strategic communications firm or ad agency called Morgan Myers, and they focus on farm-to-table communications. I'll specifically be working on a consumer engagement project for the Hormel Company and working with a number of different commodity groups in Illinois, the corn growers, beef, dairy, soybean, and the pork producers to engage consumers through digital channels which is another passion of mine. And that was all possible because of NAMA, because I came to them and they said, we need someone who has experience in a number of different marketing facets. And I said, well, that's lucky for you. I was involved in a student organization with a historically recognized, Sarah, I don't think Sarah mentioned that we also get at least first or second place every year out of 40 different schools from the United States and Canada. So our hard work and amazing advisor, it all pays off when it comes to national competition. And we're really excited to leave at 5 a.m. on Tuesday next week.
Can we ask some questions?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Who's Tom Schomish?
Tom Schomish, actually, he holds a special place in my heart. I was never fortunate enough to know him, but he was a former advisor of NAMA for quite a number of years. 17 years, and I've had the pleasure to get to know his wife, Gail, very well. She's been gracious enough to provide me with a scholarship 2 years in a row now in Tom Schomish's name. And we're excited that she's still involved and contributing to NAMA. And yeah.
And one quick history fact that I do know about him, because Sarah always reminds us of this, we luckily have the chance to present with a nice PowerPoint when we go to the competition, but he used to have the posters of the different products that they produce and what they used to have to do for their marketing plan. So pretty fun. Does anyone have any other questions? No? I think one of the biggest takeaways that I could say from a student perspective that we all kind of hit on was just that, yes, we all directly are going into marketing, but my roommate, who's also in NAMA, is very interested in dairy science, and one of the ways that she shines in our plan is by helping us understand the numbers. And so one part about marketing and creating this plan is that we need people in all types of facets within CALS and within the business school to really bring to life our plan, because we all have our little different differences that are the best for us. So thank you. Sarah, do you want to wrap up anything?
So if any of this sounds at all appealing, we are always actively recruiting new NAMA members, and the way to do that is to reach out to me. You can find me through the Life Sciences Communication website, or just search my name in the WISC search engine on our website, or reach out to any of the wonderful students who are here at least through the end of the semester, and we'll find a way to get you involved. Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question. I just want to say how utterly impressive the three of you are, and so Sarah, your advertising about them is justifiably laudatory. But I want to ask you, Jordan, about farm to table, because I'm sure that the three of you know. You've heard of community-supported agriculture, the fact that this state has more community-supported agriculture farms than any other state in the country. I live on a piece of property that is an open piece of open space, and on it not only are the housing situation where I live, but a 5-acre CSA farm and 340 community garden plots. The CSA farm started 3 years ago doing this field-to-table pizza night, which has increasingly become more popular with people on our side of town who are living. So, and of course, the city of Madison, and in fact, a lot of places in the upper Midwest, farm to table is a growing sort of a thing. So when I heard you, who's in the middle, whose name I can't remember now, thank you, mentioned that only 2%, one of you mentioned that only 2% of the country is currently involved in agriculture, which is pretty shocking. I'm thinking about CSA farmers and how I think they continue to grow in the state very incrementally, And I'm interested in your thoughts about CSAs, their marketing, and farm to table sorts of things, and the way that they go out marketing, because it's a tiny sliver of the sort of ag marketing that you folks are involved in.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I actually was talking to someone earlier today. There's a lot of great folks at the UW Extension that are working with community-supported agriculture, and one of the capstone senior projects this year is working to empower community-supported agriculture through marketing efforts. And I think the CSA is an excellent way, especially in this state and other high-producing agricultural states, to get other people that traditionally wouldn't be involved in agriculture and food production involved with growing food and with learning more about that process. I'm definitely excited to see it continue to grow. I think there's a place both for that and for production, traditional production agriculture, conventional agriculture as well. That's able to also produce for those that aren't interested or maybe aren't able to produce their own food through community-supported agriculture. And a goal of mine down the road too is to, in addition to my full-time job, be able to support whatever you call it, pro bono or freelance marketing efforts to organizations like community-supported farms that can't always afford the marketing efforts that larger companies can.
Just to augment that for a really quick thought, part of what's so special about community-supported agriculture is the story behind it. And all good marketing is based in a story, right? When we tell our stories well, people listen. And so when a community-supported agriculture organization has the opportunity to tell its story and tell it well, that speaks volumes about what they do and speaks volumes more than a paid advertisement could. So any opportunity that your CSA or any other CSA gets to tell its story about where it began, why it matters, who it's serving, and the work that the organization does to involve its community is enormous in terms of what it can do for attracting more people to be interested in what they do.
You know what, you're absolutely right about that, and one of the things that I just have to learn, because I'm on the board of the organization that owns that piece of open space property, is that our CSA raised a lot of additional money so that they could give weekly shares to people on our side of town, especially kids, low-income kids and low-income families, at an incredibly cheap rate. And I was very proud to hear that. Great story. And that is a great story. Right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you.
I'd like to clarify something. Thank you, NAMA people, for coming today. We appreciate your participation very much, all of you. Do you think extracurricular activities is an extension of learning? Well, I'd hope you got that impression. There was a topic that was brought up about 2%. I think you should understand that 2% is probably a representative of the number of farms that are actually in operation. Nearly 50% of all industry in this state today is agriculture oriented. So the 2% and 50%, I think the 2% is where the farm people come from. Seeing Tom Link here in the audience, I can't help but say one thing before we get started further, and that is that McCollum discovered vitamin A and B, and his dad discovered warfarin along with Mark Stallman. Steenbach radiated milk for vitamin D. You heard Paul. Have they heard Paul Williams yet about fast plants and so forth? I want to remind you, those are all quantitative kinds of things that were measured with all kinds of instruments and certainly in the test tube. Extracurricular activities can't be measured this way. And that's why I was always so insinuating to Dave Nelson to let's talk about this, because this is an extension of what we can't measure by hand. Aldo Leopold, you can't measure a lot of things that he did either with his Land County Almanac, and yet very important aspects. And I know you've always had Aldo Leopold discussed here. And so this is why I was particularly interested in having extracurricular activities as another historical kind of thing that cannot be measured quantitatively, but very subjectively is a part of our whole program. And I think that University of Wisconsin probably is second to none in the country that does a lot of this. And so now this brings me on to the other two things that we wanted to talk about today. Let me see if I can pull this up. What do I do to make it go forward? I want to go to the next slide. Okay, I want to go. I don't want that one. Don't want that one. I don't want that one. This one. I'm going to say just a little bit about another program that's on your sheet. It's called the Meat Animal Evaluation Program. And this was actually designed by myself and a number of other people, but I was very very much involved about 50 years ago in the development of this, and it was an extension of things in the college, in our department, in which I was trying to change tradition, and that's very difficult to do. If you ever tried to try it sometime, it was difficult. And I was going out on a limb, and I made a lot of enemies as a result of this, because what I wanted to do was to have the students understand the whole concept of meat animal evaluation, just pieces of it, like meat judging or animals, livestock judging, this sort of thing. And so I put it all together into what I call the meat animal evaluation program, and it stimulated our classroom efforts to put emphasis on the total concept, not the individual concepts. This didn't go over very big with a lot of schools, and they didn't like it for a while, but it's survived over time, and it works pretty well. This just shows you a diagram of how breeding animals, market animals, meat are all put together into a whole program, and this was developed and for nearly 35 years was conducted at the Exorbitant in Omaha, Nebraska, and had wonderful national attention on this while it existed there. It still goes today, and now universities are now housing this program, and students are involved in it. My aim was to have something to do. In fact, my whole view was that competition stimulates motivation, and as a result of this, a lot of our students learn about this total concept by competing with other schools. And so I'm pleased to introduce to you now Erica Thomas, who happens to be sort of a third generation of my students. I had both her father and uncle in class many years ago. Now she's coming because she's been involved with both of these programs, both this program and the academic quadrathlon, which is kind of a fun program, and she'll probably say something about that as well. It's on your sheet there and it describes it, but I wanted to, let's see, I think maybe, can I go forward again? Yeah, here's the academic quadrathlon program. This is just a fun program in which they do all kinds of things, only under competition. And I believe one of my firm views is that competition stimulates the motivation of the student to learn better. Erica, you're on. Thank you. And you'll need to hold that pretty close to you.
Okay. All right, so as Dr. Kauffman said, I'm Erica Thomas. I'm a junior studying animal sciences right now, and I had the opportunity to participate in meat animal livestock evaluation as well as academic quadrathlon. And I just want to go back and say about what Dr. Kauffman said earlier about you truly learn a lot through extracurricular activities, and I think you learn a lot about yourself too. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to participate in these events, and you just make such great friendships that will last a lifetime. So first I'll talk about the meat animal livestock evaluation and kind of how you get to be involved in something like that. So course-wise, to be involved in meat animal livestock evaluation, you'll first take Animal Science 220, and that's a course that you can take. I think it's worth 4 credits or so. And then after you complete that course, where you're really learning about what you look for in breeding livestock and market livestock and in meat products as well, you apply that knowledge in an Animal Science 221 level course. And that's when you're actually on the judging team. So last year I got the opportunity to be on the livestock judging team, and to do this you have, we met twice a week to just kind of go over some crunchy numbers, doing your calculations, looking at cattle, pigs, sheep live on Tuesdays, and then they were harvested, and then we looked at them, looked at their carcasses on Thursday, and compared those estimates of what they were live and what they were on the rail. So that's very interesting to kind of see how far off your estimations are. Our advisor right now, Ron Russell, the running joke is whoever's the furthest off has to buy the ice cream cones and has to bring donuts to practice on Saturday. So I had to bring donuts a couple times. So. Sure. Previous. There we go. So, and then on Saturdays in your spring semester, you are traveling all across the state of Wisconsin, going to local farms, local butcher shops, and you're just spending time with these producers to learn about not only their farming operation, but looking at their livestock and the livestock that their family has been running for years and years. So it's just a really neat opportunity to go out and meet local producers and learn about local butcher shops and how that business came about. So yeah, every Saturday you get to spend traveling across the state, which is pretty fun. And then after you have a few practices, you go and you participate in the Triathlon Contest, and that is held here at UW-Madison. I believe this past year there were over 20 teams that came from across the state to participate. So again, you focus on your breeding livestock, your market animals, and then meat products as well. So that's a really fun opportunity. You treat it as one big practice contest for the national contest that you will be going to. So last year the national contest was held at Kansas State University. So we traveled for a few days going down there. We were able to make some pretty neat stops along the way. We stopped at Tyson's in Joslin, Illinois, I believe. We were able to go in, not only get a tour of the plant, but also look at some beef carcasses there at well and get some practice in. And then later on, we headed to Marshalltown, Iowa, and we got a tour of the JBS pork plant there, which is unbelievable. They call it a campus, and it truly is because of how big it is. And going through that plant, every single person's job is equally important, because if one person wouldn't be there, they wouldn't be able to be as efficient in the work that you do. And it's very humbling. You really appreciate every single person's position there. And then we also stopped at Iowa State University, and we looked at some of their livestock, and then stopped at some local farms along the way down to Kansas State. So at Kansas State, we had our competition there. There's an oral presentation part, and then again, you're looking at your breeding livestock, market livestock, and then you're in the coolers on the last day, and you're looking at all the carcasses. Yeah, being a part of triathlon and the meat animal livestock judging team was really special to me. As Bob said, my dad, uncle, and aunt actually participated in livestock judging. So the photo that you saw up there of the 6 gals that are really close, I can walk down the hallway and see pretty much all my family on the wall too. So that's pretty special for me. I grew up doing 4-H and FFA judging, and this was just a really neat opportunity for me to continue to develop those skills. And then some people that really didn't necessarily have that background, they got to develop a whole new set of skills too, and just look at livestock in a different way and really learn to appreciate it too. So that's what I have on meat animal evaluation. And then moving on to academic quadriathlon. So I participated in AQ this year. I had 3 other people or members on my team. And you first have a competition here in Madison. That's our district contest. And there were a couple other teams that participated. So there's 4 different components to AQ. You have your lab practicum, oral presentation, quiz bowl, and then a written exam too. So all these activities take place on a Friday afternoon. You get fed pizza, and then you get sent on your merry way after a few hours. So it's pretty short and sweet, but you're really doing a lot of work in that time. You're applying everything that you possibly could have learned through any lecture that you had on animal science, dairy science, as well as applying any hands-on skills as well. And that really plays into the lab practicum part. Lab practicum, you're at all different species. You have poultry and horses and beef and sheep and swine and meats. So it's on our team this year, we had people that kind of specialized in each area. So that was really helpful for us, and that's what gave us the opportunity to compete at the regional contest then in Omaha this year. So that was actually February 10th through the 13th, so pretty recent, actually March 10th through the 13th. So we traveled down there and we participated in the lab practicum and the written exam portion at University of Lincoln, and they just have phenomenal facilities down there. They don't call it an animal science building, they call it an animal science complex, and it's truly spectacular. So it's wonderful to see what else is out there in animal science and getting that exposure and meeting new people. And we really made some neat connections down there, not only with different coaches for AQ, but also some students as well. So that's all that I kind of have. Is there any questions that you have for me?
Well, just this is a very basic question. So the breeding animal is the one that sticks around and continues to breed, and the market animal quickly is raised and goes to market.
Correct.
Not breeding material, particularly.
Correct.
But how do you know that how does that get sorted out, aside from, oh, well, the breeder, well, delivered that calf very nicely, okay,
Yeah.
maybe that's good breeding stock. How do you sort it out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's different traits that you look for in different animals. In females to reproduce, you want them really long-bodied and deep-bodied so they can carry their babies well and deliver well. Whereas in some market animals, you're really looking for a lot of muscle so they can hang a lot of meat or produce a lot of meat to consume. So there's different characteristics that you look for visually when you're looking for replacement animals for your breeding program or market animals that you'll ship to be harvested then.
That's very logical.
Thank you very much, Erica, for your participation today. I'll just answer one question for you. The purpose of the meat animal evaluation was to actually make it more objective. Up until the time that this was started, when market animals were evaluated, a group of live people decided what the carcasses might be like. Well, we took this one step further and said, hey, wait a minute, no guessing about it. Let's find out what it actually is. And so that was the purpose of this and one of the reasons we put it together in that regard. And of course, you don't slaughter breeding animals usually, and so as a result, we kept them as a separate entity of the program. So it is a very important concept in our classwork as well, and all this did was stimulate it on a student basis so that they could compete. And this is what this is all about. Extra, and I hope that if nothing else you got from this discussion today was that extracurricular activities are an extension of learning beyond the classroom, beyond the library, and that it does serve a purpose in its place. And we wanted people to understand that. And we here at Wisconsin, we have a marvelous group. I think we listed 8 or 9 different organizations that have things, some more prominent than the others. In my opinion, probably the most prominent one right now is NAMA. They really go headlong and sinker into this kind of a program. But it's been a very valuable, and it's been going for over 40 years. The meat animal evaluation program has been going for over 50 years, and the academic quadrathlon about 35 or so years. And that's just a fun activity. And the idea, again, is to make learning fun. David, this is the extension of our work today, and we hope that somebody got something from this idea. We didn't invent any vitamins today.
Thank you very much.